Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Jacqueline Gibson and I'm a professional astrologer using the whole sign house system. And today we're breaking down the upcoming lunar eclipse happening on September 7th, 2025 at 12:08 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. New and full moons indicate changes. Eclipses magnify change and generally represent major shifts that show up in our lives. Generally speaking, eclipses describe significant beginnings and endings, catalysts, new cycles, and transitions. So another factor that plays a big role in interpreting how an eclipse is affecting you is looking at each one. So like I said, they unfold basically over an 18-month period. But the first one that will show up in that series generally shows up at the tail end of the one previous. So that's the one that'll just kind of be like, here's a hint of what's coming up. So the eclipse that happened that's associated with this one would be in September of 2024. So you can look back on what was going on with you in September of 2024, or maybe there was just some type of like hint that you missed. And now that some time has passed, as you look back, you're like, oh yeah, so there was September of 2024 that XYZ happened. And then the second one was in March of 2025. That was really the beginning of this particular eclipse series. So that gave more than just a hint. That really like kicked things off usually. And now what we're having is both eclipses will be in Virgo Pisces along the Virgo Pisces axis. So on September 7th, we have a full moon in Pisces. And then on September 21st, we will have a new moon in Virgo. And both of those on September 7th and on September 21st, those will be eclipses. So we're starting with a lunar eclipse on the 7th, and we're ending with a solar eclipse on the 21st. So you can really start to look at as hints for like what's unfolding for you. That period of time in September of 2024, March of 2025, and then really from September 1st until the end of September, like September 30th. Because the week prior to an eclipse, as well as like a week or so after, is still a time when we consider that eclipse to be active. So just consider it like the whole month of September. So the other planets that are most affecting this particular eclipse are Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter right now is in Cancer. And since this full moon is in Pisces, you have a mutual reception happening between the moon being in Pisces and Jupiter being in Cancer. And that mutual reception is that the moon is at home in Cancer and Jupiter is at home in Pisces. So having them in the sky kind of in each other's home means that they can help each other out a lot easier, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a place where we can look for assistance or help with whatever the eclipse is bringing to the forefront for us. On the flip side of that, Saturn has just retrograded back into Pisces. So if you are having a Saturn return, you're almost done. Saturn went back into Pisces. It will be coming back out in February. But the significant part for right now is that Saturn is a part of this eclipse cycle, this 18-month eclipse cycle. Saturn initially ingressed into Pisces in May of 2023. So you can look back at that time and really this period, this entire period from May 2023 until now and moving forward until after February, that entire cycle is whatever Saturn was bringing up for you in that house, in your chart, in Pisces. And because in this case, it's Saturn's last ingress into Pisces for the next 30 years, this tends to be the time when Saturn's like, you know, last call. Like, you have to get this done. It's serious now. We don't have any more time left. So whatever it's there to teach you, it's going to really want you to get it now. This time really is signifying a certain lesson, and the time that Saturn will spend in Pisces between now and February, it's like your last chance to get whatever started in May of 2023, it's like your last chance to kind of get that done. Or to wait it out for it to be finished. Like, okay, I can look forward to February for this thing to be over. Like, I know what it is. I've learned as much as I can. I'll take these last hints of whatever last events that are tied into this and move on with my life. So given the significance of the eclipse and the last ingress of Saturn, it could benefit you to take some notes as you're watching your own rising sign to see where this particular eclipse is affecting you. If your rising sign is Virgo, then you have Virgo in your first house. And this lunar eclipse will be activating your first and seventh house. It will be affecting both of those houses throughout this month. So your first house is about you. It's about you. It's your personal identity. It's your personality. Your seventh house is all about your partner, partnerships, significant others. It's whoever your person is. So during this time, you're going to see changes having to do with your own identity and your partner. But that would be something that's tied together. Like, for instance, if my partner is going through changes that might shift how I see myself, or vice versa, if I am going through changes that are changing the way that I see this partnership. So like, for example, when a long-term relationship ends, this sometimes changes our identity. If I'm getting divorced, I'm no longer a wife. That's a piece of my identity that might no longer be there. Everyone does not get divorced when there is a eclipse in your first and seventh house. It can be a lot of different things, but that's an example of how tied to our partners sometimes our own identity is, and how shifts for them can often mean shifts in how we see ourselves. If they have a financial shift, that might change our finances within our home. That might mean that I can't participate in certain activities that required, a certain level of income. And the reverse is also true. Someone could start making more money that could in some way affect my identity. I could become a homeowner. It can be simple things. But for anyone with Virgo rising, you're looking at your first house and your seventh house axis, and you're asking yourself how changes in my partner's life are changing my identity, or vice versa. If you have Leo rising, this eclipse is happening on your second and eighth house axis. So your second house is your personal finances, your stuff, and it can also be how you earn money. That's money of your own. So it wouldn't be in the second house. It's not necessarily like investments or inheritance. However, because this involves both houses, the second and the eighth, this could be dividends from an investment, that's eighth house, that becomes your money in your second house. So the eighth house is all about inheritance, my partner's funds, other people's money, debts. So it's money that I am tied to, but is sort of out here. It involves me, but it's not mine. So during an eclipse that's affecting your second and your eighth house, you might receive an inheritance. You might get news that you are in someone's will. You may become the executor of a will. It does not mean necessarily that anyone will pass. This can also be a time when you pay off debts or change jobs, which changes your finances. But there will be changes that involve specifically your personal finances and the finances of either your partner or how you are involved in other people's money. So for instance, if your partner was to experience a financial setback, that's an eighth house event that affects your second house because it affects your personal finances. Like if you're to help them out or you need to participate more in your joint finances than your partner is for whatever amount of time, then that's someone else's finances affecting your income. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone's going to lose a job again, or that anyone will pass. Sometimes the effects of eclipse are small and barely noticeable if we're not looking for them. And sometimes they're big events that we can, pin down right away that, oh yeah, this is a very, second, eighth house intense time in my life. So there's no way to know which one that's going to be for you. Just continue to pay attention. And like I said, there were hints about what it would be in September of 2024 and March of 2025. So you can look back at those times to kind of give you some guidance as to what it is you're looking for. If you have Cancer rising, this eclipse will be happening in your 3rd and 9th houses. So it's affecting that axis between the 3rd and the 9th. The 3rd is all about communication and your daily routine, as well as your siblings, or basically family members that are not brothers and sisters or parents. So whoever is like considered, it's a sibling-like relationship for you. And then your 9th house is all about your spirituality, your beliefs. It can be about travel, and it can be about experience with cultures that are foreign to you. So I'm not talking about like people having a different nationality all living in the same area. I mean, going out of your area and having some type of interaction that's really significant for you with somebody who is from a completely different culture that you haven't ever had an interaction with before or had the opportunity to learn about before. This can also look like education, or you may be changing your mind about something which changes the education that you want to get or the education that you want to engage with. An example of this might look like starting a new phase in your education that requires travel and makes significant changes to your daily routine. Or this could even look like significant shifts in your beliefs about the world, like your worldview, as a result of something you experience with a sibling or something you run into in your day-to-day routine. But usually with an eclipse, this is going to be something that stands out, so you'll know which one of these areas of your life it's hitting. If you have Gemini rising, this eclipse is activating your 4th and 10th house axis. Your 10th house is all about your career, your public reputation, and your public persona. Your 4th house is all about your home, your family, and your parents. It can be about like your physical home or the people that you consider home, like family of origin or ancestry. Through this eclipse, you're looking for changes, for example, that happen in your career that affect your home life. Like you could be offered a job that requires you to move. So that's a change in your career that also affects physically where you live. Or the reverse could be true. There could be changes in your family of origin that are affecting your career in some way. This could even look like your parents like deciding to sell your childhood home that brings about some type of ending for you that changes the way you see yourself in the world, if that makes sense. Like if the family home sort of anchored you to a particular geographic location, and selling their house and moving to Florida, well, now that anchor doesn't exist. And maybe now you're looking to relocate or to make some kind of significant change for you as well. And maybe that didn't seem possible before. So throughout this 18-month period, the whole story will unfold. But like I said before, you would see some type of hints about this, like maybe parents putting the house on the market, or maybe you're selling your own home and that's kind of your own roots right now. So maybe you put your house on the market and it sells during this time. And then from now until 6 months from now, when this eclipse is really coming to an end, that's the time that you're taking to decide like where you're going to go or what you're going to do or where your new roots might be. And as you're making those decisions, you're also considering like, how does that affect my career? Maybe I have to change careers, or maybe I start working from home all the time so that I can be anywhere. So my roots are kind of impermanent. But whatever the details, this is the area of your life that this eclipse will be affecting. If you have Taurus rising, this eclipse will be activating your 5th house and your 11th house. Your 5th house is all about romance. It can be about your children. It can be about creative expression or creative activities that you're involved with. It's just basically what you create. So we create our children, and sometimes we create businesses, especially when those jobs feel more creative. Like if we have a job editing, or we have a job in architecture, or that's somehow directly related in some type of art, those would be examples of where I'm creative that this eclipse is affecting. So it's a creative project, not just my internal kind of creativity. This can also look like your hobbies, especially hobbies that you might engage in with your children. It can look like sports. If you are personally involved with sports, like that's something that you're actively engaging with. So how this affects the 11th house is that something that you're creating is affecting your community, who you see as your community, and who your groups are. So like a hobby could lead you to a specific type of group, or you might meet a romantic partner while engaged in a community activity of some kind. The 11th house is your friends, it's your community, it's groups, any kind of group that you align yourself with. Those can even be groups online. But where this is affecting both houses, the 11th and the 5th, it would look like I'm meeting up with this group, and in that group, I met someone and now we're having a fling. Or this can look like I've created something that I am now sharing with a group. This can also look like groups that you engage with your children, like your children are involved and the parents are involved. Or this can look like meeting new friends through your children. So you want to be looking at the eclipse that happened in September of 2024, as well as the one that we just had in March of 2025. Those were both kind of leading towards where we're at right now, and whatever kind of opened up to us at that time, there's a lot more activity around it now. So like if you signed one of your children up for a sport in March, they may be actually attending now. And so that's where it like starts with your children, but it ends up as this like community activity. If you have Aries rising, this eclipse is activating your 6th and your 12th house axis. Your 6th house is about your physical health, your work environment, and it can also be about people who are employed by you or your coworkers. Your 12th house is all about your mental health, your spiritual well-being, and it can sometimes be about sabotaging yourself or being sabotaged by others. So for instance, if there is someone who is sabotaging you, they might be someone who is in your work environment. That would be an example of this axis being activated. The 6th house being the work environment and the 12th house being some type of sabotage. Hopefully this isn't you sabotaging someone in your work environment. And it doesn't have to be any kind of sabotage. It could also just be the things that affect my physical health affect my mental health and vice versa. So sometimes we don't recognize that one is affecting the other. Like if we are in some type of pain for a long period of time, it's sort of like gradual. So it can start to affect our mental health. Like if I've been getting migraines for 3 years, or if I started getting migraines at the beginning of this eclipse period, I might now be noticing that this isn't just affecting me physically, this is affecting my sleep, which is affecting the way I feel on a daily basis. It's affecting how I see myself. So this could look like getting some type of mental health help that helps with a physical condition, or this could look like getting some type of help for a physical condition that makes your like mental health increase. Whatever it is, remember that it's affecting both houses. So if you're only seeing it, for instance, as a physical issue, ask yourself, like, is this affecting me spiritually, emotionally? Is that something that I could get some help with? If you have Pisces rising, this eclipse is affecting your 1st and your 7th house axis. The North Node itself will be in your 1st house. And your 1st house is about your identity, your personality, how you see yourself, how you present yourself to the world. The 7th house is all about our relationships, our partnerships, whoever your person is. So at this time, this eclipse is bringing significant changes to either your relationships or to you personally. And whatever changes are happening with you personally, those may be affecting your partnership and vice versa. There may be changes in your partnership that are affecting you. So for example, if your partner moved away for a job or to go to school, and you had been someone who was part of a couple, and now you kind of feel like on your own, you don't feel as connected to them, and you're kind of finding out who you are. That would be an example of how the changes in our partners' lives can affect our own personal identity and then what we're doing with that. So this does not always indicate breakups or long distance relationships, but there's some kind of change happening either in your partnerships or with you that is changing one or both of those things. If you're not in a partnership at this time, you might start a significant long-term relationship during this 18 months. And if this is when a relationship starts, it's likely to be pretty intense. If you have Aquarius rising, this eclipse will be affecting your 2nd and 8th house axis. So your 8th house is all about your partner's finances, other people's money, inheritance, debts, taxes. And your 2nd house is all about your own personal finances, as well as like your stuff, but it's what belongs to you. So with an eclipse triggering this particular axis, you're looking at changes in your personal finances that might change the finances of your partner. So for instance, if you were to get a raise or you were to get a new job where you made more money, that could affect your partner's life. This wouldn't be a small change. This would be a significant change. That's what you're looking for. And the reverse is also true. Your partner could experience either an increase in their personal finances that affects what you need to put in the household. So it affects your personal finances. Maybe your finances increase because you are not having to cover as much for whatever reason. This could also look like you or your partner receiving some type of lump sum payment. That could be from a trust fund, an inheritance. That could be from an investment that one of you made in the past. But whatever it is, it's about joint finances or somebody else's finances that is also affecting you. This could also look like going into business with someone, some type of partnership business. And so there's some type of joint account to represent the income from that partnership. And some part of that becomes your finances, if that makes sense. It becomes your personal money. If you have Capricorn rising, this eclipse will be activating your 3rd and 9th house. Your 3rd house is all about your daily routine, your siblings, and your communication. It's also the way that you think and the things that you think about on a daily basis. Your 9th house is all about travel, interactions with foreign cultures, higher education, and it can be like your ultimate goals as they pertain to like your worldview, if that makes sense. So my perspective of the world or myself in the world is that I will one day show up as an author or a famous movie star or computer engineer, a YouTuber, whatever. But that's part of how you see the world in the future and yourself in it. During this eclipse period, you may experience significant changes to your worldview or how you see yourself in the world. That could come through changing groups that you align with. That can come through something that you read, some type of communication that comes to you, or that can be through some kind of interaction with like neighbors, people that you see on a daily basis, or through siblings. And remember that in astrology, siblings means basically any family members that are not your parents or your grandparents. So siblings can be actual siblings or they can be cousins, aunts, uncles, but they're still people who are significant in your life. If you have Sagittarius rising, this eclipse period is activating your 4th and 10th house axis. Your 4th house is all about your home, your roots, and your parents. And your 10th house is all about your career, your public persona, who you are in the public eye, the part of yourself that you share with the world. And if the 10th house is the part of ourselves that we share with everyone, the 4th house is kind of like what's private to me. It's not necessarily secret. It can just be like, that's where my boundaries are. So this is the me that I am when I'm at home and I'm with my people. And then this is the me that I am when I'm out and about with acquaintances or friends or work colleagues. So during this eclipse, you may have changes in your career that cause you to move, or you might move, which in turn affects your career. This can also look like selling a home, starting a new career, which enables you to buy a home or enables you to get a bigger living space in some way. It doesn't always mean like a massive, geographic relocation. You might decide to redecorate the home that you're in, or you might be able to make purchases that make your space feel more homey to you. This can also look like changes that are happening with your parents. So sometimes the house that an eclipse is affecting isn't so much about us. We could actually be like kind of standing outside of the change and watching it. So it affects me because it's people who are in my life, or it's, like things that happen at my job do affect me. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming from me. So in your case, like for instance, if your parents were to retire and move to another state, or even just retire and stay in the same state, you're not the one who's retiring, but the fact that your parents are retiring has an effect on you. So this could be changes that are happening in your workplace or happening in your home that you might feel are kind of standing outside of and observing. Or it may be more personal for you. It could be you that's the one selling the house. Either way, both of those things would indicate how this eclipse is affecting you. If you have Scorpio rising, this eclipse is activating your 11th and 5th houses. Your 11th house is all about your friends, your community, whoever your people are. And your 5th house is often about your children. It can be about romance. It can be about creative projects or creative goals. Just basically like your hobbies and what you do with them, the things that you love, whatever brings you joy. That is also something that you're actively engaged with. One of the most common changes that we see that involve the 5th and the 11th axis is, for instance, when people get pregnant, and that completely changes how you're engaging socially. Like you might have been extremely social and you're out and about all the time, and suddenly when you get pregnant, you just want to stay home. And then after that, you're having a child, and, it just changes how you engage with society. It changes the friends that you want to hang out with, or, obviously you're not wanting to hang out with really active friends. You want to kind of move slowly because the child is taking a lot of your energy. So, and by move slowly, I mean, rather than like going on a road trip to the beach for the weekend, you might prefer to barbecue in the backyard for the weekend because that's easier. That's an activity that aligns more with parenting and the time that it takes to parent and to be a new parent and learn how to do it. So you're looking at things either that involve your children and then are affecting the community that you're engaging with, or things about your community that are affecting your children or your romantic life. Like you might meet someone when you're with your friends that then becomes a romantic partner that you're having a fling with. So that would be, it started in my 11th house, now it's in my 5th house. It started with my community, with my friends, and now it's something that's more intensely experienced and personally experienced by me in my 5th house through this romance that's begun. Whatever is happening, though, just remember that it involves both of those areas of your life. So if you're having intense experiences that are happening, for example, with your friends, look at those areas that are connected to the 5th house in your life, because you might not have noticed how exactly it's also affecting your children or creative projects you might have been engaged with. Maybe you're spending more time with your friends and now you're not actively engaging with your own hobbies, or vice versa. You might have kind of isolated and, you found this new thing that you're doing. Or maybe you're just not seeing as much of your friends now as you were before. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like sometimes we have times in our life where we're not feeling extremely social. And that's okay. You might want to reach out and like let them know it's not them, or maybe you don't. But for whatever reason, it's good to look at it through that lens of the one is affecting the other, if that makes sense. If you have Libra rising, this eclipse is activating your 6th and your 12th house axis. So your 12th house is your mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. It can also be self-sabotage or sabotage from other people. Your 6th house is about your physical well-being, can also be your work environment, employees, or coworkers. So an example of something that would affect both areas of your life, this could look like getting physically sick, and then that kind of affects how I feel spiritually or emotionally. This can also look like, in terms of sabotage that affects your physical health, like someone doesn't mean to, but they get you sick and that affects your physical health, especially if that someone is in your work environment or is an employee of some kind. Remember too that employees aren't just like I own a business and I have 50 employees. That can also be like somebody who babysits for you. That can be a doctor, a nurse, some type of like someone who gives assistance that you only see one time, like the person who fits you for your glasses, does your nails, does your hair. All of those things in today's terms are considered employees. As far as how we translate the 6th house into modern, like real world conditions and relationships. So it's not saying like the person who does your nails is less than you or whatever. It's not about like a system like that. It's just like how it translates into the world that we live in today. So that can be a lot of people. So you might not even necessarily know who it is. So in terms of like sabotage, obviously someone wouldn't mean to get you sick when they were, making your blizzard, but it happens. And technically that would be considered sabotage. It can also be like literally someone who's just got it out for you. And at this point, it's affecting like your physical well being, or it's affecting, like if this person is in your work environment, if somebody, it just feels like somebody in your environment just has it out for you, that can eventually affect your mental health. So now is just a good time to pay attention to that. Like it's not going to be something that remains underneath the surface. Like an eclipse really brings to light things that we hadn't seen before. So it's like it pushes what we're normally looking at into the background and pulls something else to the surface. So whatever it's pulling to the surface for you, it's a good time to address it rather than like try to wait it out and just put it back under the rug. That would not be considered a good use of this time. So it's okay to just, whatever comes out, whatever's showing itself, just embrace it and go with it. It's just time to work on that, whatever that is. And there you have it. That's everything you need to get started looking at how this eclipse on September 7th is going to be affecting you in your personal life. And if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much. Feel free to share your experience with this eclipse in the comments below. Share with each other, share with me. I love to see them. Thanks so much for watching, and take really good care of you.